And we're live. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream, Bitcoin Summer on Solana, the biggest loop on Solana. I'm Carmen from Zeus, and I'll be hosting today. Super excited to be joined by an amazing lineup. We've got Dean from Zeus, Peter from Apollo, Luke from Loopscale, and also some very special guests, Fabiana and Ashen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, cool. Thanks for joining,
Well,
guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll be diving into a campaign that's live right now with Apollo and Loopscale, and it's all about making your BTC more productive in Solana DeFi, from earning yield and putting your ZBTC to work across like lending and looping and more. And yeah, this is all part of like the broader Bitcoin Summer on Solana campaign that we're hosting at Zeus as well. It's really, and it's not only just like a Zeus initiative, we're building a movement to really unite Bitcoin projects across the Solana ecosystem and amplify that momentum together. And yeah, the goal is simple, really just to grow awareness for like CBTC and BTC fight opportunities and help more people realize that they can do more than just hold their Bitcoin, they can earn with it as well. So yeah, let's start off with some quick intros. Tell us who you are and what you're building. How about Dean? Do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Dean. I'm the chief scientist at Zeus Network. So, I'm in charge of all of our cryptography libraries and kind of all of the sort of deep protocol level research behind all of our products. So kind of building out all that stuff so that our product team can make all the stuff that you guys use.
Nice. And then let's hand over to Peter to introduce.
sure. Hi, everyone. I am Peter. I'm part of the Zeus team. Now I'm leading Apollo. So I've been focusing on getting ZBTC adoption, integration across Solana ecosystem. So I've been working with different DeFi projects, including Loopscale, to design the whole biggest loop incentive program that's currently live. So yeah, happy to share more of the progress later. I'll pass the mic back to you, Carmen.
Thanks. I'll pass it straight over to Luke to introduce himself.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. I'm Luke. I'm co-founder CEO of Loopscale. We've been around the Solana ecosystem now for almost 4 years. We are really interested kind of in the intersection of some of the more sophisticated or productive uses of assets within DeFi ecosystem and sort of how that branches into some of the more either off-chain RWA focused things or, expanding kind of the addressable market for people engaging in DeFi on Solana. So BTC Fi is, very much up the alley of things that we're excited about seeing, expand a little bit more on Solana.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about that too. Fabiana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the invitation. I'm always struggling a bit with introductions, but yeah, writing some threads here and there about DeFi on Solana, Power DeFi user, using a lot of CBTC and on Loopscale, of course. So maybe I can give some alpha from my side, what I'm using from a user perspective.
Yeah, that would be super cool to hear. And also Ashen too. Welcome. Would love to hear a quick intro.
Of course. Thank you guys, first of all, for having me. It's 9 a.m. here, so if I look sleepy, because I woke up like 30 minutes ago. But my answer is similar to Fabiano. I think I'm more of like a user than a creator in like the Bitcoin DeFi space, from like Sol to Sui, Base, wherever. I think in the past like 8 months, there's been a lot of good new applications to like park your long-term Bitcoin in. And I think me and Fabiano, our job is to like kind of show people how that works and like the best places to do that. And I think Loopscale as like a place to park long-term Bitcoin is a great place. And then I think Zeus Network as like a place to actually create that long-term Bitcoin is a great place as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool, nice. Thank you guys all for giving some quick intros. Yeah, speaking of like all of these like campaigns, let's dive right into it and talk about the Apollo and Loopscale campaign that's live right now and why this is like kind of like a big moment as well for like BTC on Solana. Maybe Luke, can you walk us through kind of like the ZBC1 vault on Loopscale? Like for new people coming in, like what is it, how does it work, and what kind of rewards can users earn?
Yep, for sure. Thanks for the quick intro on ZBTC1. So ultimately what Loopscale is a borrow lend platform with a lot of fun stuff that you can do on top of that. The vaults, and specifically the ZBTC vault, are focused on the lender side, so users can deposit an asset like ZBTC. And then there's a number of parameters set kind of by us internally, focused on lending out that ZBTC to a bunch of users on chain, obviously over collateralized. And one of the really big focuses for Loopscale is lending to productive assets. So things that people maybe are earning yield on or generating some kind of income with, that they're posting as collateral, so they're willing to borrow at a bit of a higher rate, and we can drive back more yield to depositors. And sort of we've added a couple incentives on top of that. So a points boost on the Loopscale app. So that's for people who are, building up their rewards within the Loopscale ecosystem, which we can discuss more in the future. And then some Zeus tokens as well, just to kind of give some more immediate reason for folks to participate. And these are both, limited time campaigns, but in general, long term, there's plenty of things people are doing with their Bitcoin on Solana that they're willing to pay, reasonable yield for. And so we want to kind of continue to see that supply there that we then can work with to kind of power things like market making, people running different trading strategies where they're maybe shorting Bitcoin and long Solana, something like that, and continue to generate yield off those assets that they're supplying.
Nice. Fabiana and Ashen, since you're coming in from the user perspective too, if there's anything that you want to jump in on, feel free. I'll ask a bit more about the bigger picture in terms of depositing ZBTC into the vault. How does that make it BTC more productive in Solana DeFi? I guess that's a question for Luke or Fabiana, Ashen.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I thought Fabiano was going to talk, but first of all, Loopscale is a company that I remember when I'm pretty sure there was a hack a while back, and you guys handled that really, really well. So I've always had an eye on Loopscale, and then Fabiano and Juicy all of the time, every single day they talk to me about Loopscale this, Loopscale that. So whatever you guys were doing with Zeus Network, which is a company I've been following pretty closely, I was like, okay, here's another great protocol that you can plug in whatever you're doing with your Bitcoin into. So if you guys are doing a short-term campaign, hopefully it turns into a medium or long-term one as well. But the places that I plug mine into is LPs, because there's a lot of LPs out there with 2 or 3 different forms of wrapped Bitcoin. So I'll get the ZBTC and then plug it into LPs that have 3 different forms of Bitcoin or wrapped Bitcoin in it. And I like to farm yield that way. But now, after Fabiano shows how to put it into Loopscale, I kind of want to talk about that and see the benefits there compared to other places.
Yeah, maybe I can add something. I think there were 2 problems before ZBTC. I think first problem was the API for all these wrap assets was really, really small. I mean, people were not actually motivated to hold this. And of course, there are other reasons, KSC reasons as well. And it was also complicated, LP is not for everyone. So now you can actually just go to Loopscale, deposit there, you see BTC and earn 5% yield, I think it's right now. It was even higher, 10% or something. And I mean, 10% on Bitcoin is amazing. If you go to a Bitcoin conference and you tell them, okay, you can get 10% on Solana on your Bitcoin natively, that's amazing. The only place I think where you can get this at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I guess for people who these people at the Bitcoin conference and they're new to this kind of idea of looping, how would you kind of break that down for new users? Does anyone want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'm happy to. From the higher level perspective, I guess it's the idea of looping is really you've got somebody out there who thinks that they can make some extra money on the Bitcoin that they're borrowing from Loopscale or wherever, and that might be put to work doing some of that market making. So Ashton kind of mentioned that a little bit, the Bitcoin that they're borrowing might be used to short something. They maybe want to, take off some Bitcoin exposure, or they just want to go, if the rate X PTs, right, or some of these things with frag BTC, etc. There's some form of yield bearing Bitcoin. People want to go take the Bitcoin that you're lending, go get the thing that's earning some higher yield. And the process of looping is effectively pulling that yield bearing asset like frag BTC or a LP token in Orca, posting that as the collateral and saying, give me more ZBTC, and then doing that on repeat until you kind of run out of margin to do that. And so Loopscale kind of tries to condense that process as much as possible. It's a very popular trade that, a lot of the super sophisticated DeFi users are effectively doing to arbitrage different yields on different platforms. And that's kind of one of the big focuses for us is how do we make that process as efficient and smooth as possible. It's not the easiest thing to fit into one, transaction on Solana. So there's definitely kinks and stuff that we have to work through. But in general, that's kind of the idea is like you deposit to lend on the ZBTC1 vault, you're giving liquidity out to people who have some yield arbitrage strategy that they want to run within Solana or elsewhere. And we kind of make that super fast and easy to do those strategies.
Mm-hmm. I guess also one part of this campaign is the biggest loop. Maybe Peter, you want to share more about the idea behind that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So the biggest loop, I think the whole idea came from one of our campaign, Bitcoin Summer campaign, Bitcoin Summer on Solana. And Luke and I and the whole team at Loopscale, we've been actually chatting to work together a few months back. I guess recently, finally, it was time for us to create that campaign together. So we brought up the idea of, creating the biggest loop on Solana, just so that, it's pretty catchy. And also this is designed for, just like Luke mentioned, some of the depositor that they want to provide liquidity for those that want to enter more complex DeFi strategies on Solana. So the idea of biggest loop is that we want to build the biggest loop literally on Solana on Loopscale. So we decided to kick things off in August. And we see this campaign going forward for many months. And we hope to see, the next anniversary next summer for the biggest loop on Solana. So I think the idea is, we want to make sure that people understand ZBTC is a safe one-to-one underlying asset for Bitcoin on Solana. Anytime you can redeem native Bitcoin at a one-to-one ratio, permissionless, no KYC, no KYB, just like how Bitcoin is designed for, the freedom, right? So we kind of want to make sure that we send this message out and letting people know that, hey, with ZBTC, you can utilize your liquidity, Bitcoin liquidity on Solana with all these kind of different strategy. And with the help of, Asian and Fabiano, spreading the gospel and then creating those threads for those users to get into DeFi. I think this is a great picture of the whole ecosystem, how we're going to move forward. So I think a little bit about what we've been, chatting with, the Bitcoin side of things. They are a bit more conservative in terms of, participating in DeFi. A lot of them are just pure holders. But at the same time, for the users on Solana, I think they are more, more degen, you could say, or more, expert in terms of DeFi. There are a bunch of things that you could do. And I think where we are in the cycle, we're starting to see more people are starting to take profit into Bitcoin. And I think this is really good timing for us to run this campaign and to work with people like Asian and Fabiano, which are advocating, taking profit into Bitcoin or stable coin, something less volatile. So then we can all, win something at the end of the cycle, and we're not riding meme coin to zero. So I think zooming out, this is a whole phase of education and also integration for us at Apollo and at Zeus. We want to make sure that ZBTC are integrated to different protocols, offering different kind of risk and reward strategies. And we've been seeing great progress with Loopscale. We just launched, I think, less than 2 weeks ago, and now we're over 3.3 million and rising every day. So I think moving forward, we would like to see more kind of strategies using ZBTC and let people know that, hey, you can start taking some profit. You can swap using Jupiter, whatever, into ZBTC, do DeFi, or just pure hold. You hold your own key, and every ZBTC that is minted is backed 1-to-1 by Bitcoin. So that is the on-chain transparency that we want to advocate, and also just that everything with ZBTC is permissionless. I think this is the biggest thing versus other centralized version of Bitcoin, is that you got transparency of on-chain proof of reserve, and using Apollo, there's no KYC, KYB, no censorship from third party, so your asset will not be freeze. So your Bitcoin can always be redeemed Bitcoin. So that's kind of the idea. Sorry, I took a bit long time to explain, but we're really excited about the big loop on Loopscale. And moving forward, we hope to see more anniversary every summer. And again, next year, if we can be here again to celebrate the 1-year anniversary, that would be great. But yeah, that's everything I've got to share.
Nice. Yeah, no, definitely see you guys same time next year. But yeah, with the campaign, I guess it's launched quite recently, and there's already been like over 2 million ZBTC deposited. Oh, 3 million now? Okay, nice. Nice, yeah. I'm wondering if you guys have any other like stats or things that you've been observing, like on the back end, in terms of how else people are like looping.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of, we're both looking at like individual, kind of the size of depositors. We have a few that have deposited, multiple Bitcoin, but for the most part, it's been, hundreds of very small BTC depositors, which I think is awesome. Just, like you guys are talking about, using Bitcoin as a, alternative to a stable coin, as something you might sell your meme coin profits into, whatever. I think, you've seen a little bit of that, tracking kind of where the Bitcoins come from, why people are doing it. And it's cool to see kind of people building out portfolios, using ZBTC as like an anchor asset within that. And then the other one is, like the yields on the loops. So like, how profitable is it for the back end, of these things to start taking on more, Bitcoin and trading with the Bitcoin on Solana, building out, strategies with it. And especially the LP based loops have really done well. I think anywhere between 30 and 50% fee rate for people who are really, levering up, and the bar rate's been pushed down on ZBTC primarily by the incentives that we're putting on it. And I think people are taking advantage of that, which is really cool. And we're just, continuing to track utilization. Total borrowed amount of ZBTC is tracked up with deposits. We're still not at kind of like that max utilization that we're, hoping to get to, but it's a little bit of a, chicken and egg problem. So as we start seeing more supply, now we can start filling more demand. So we just kind of keep that wheel rolling. And yeah, I mean, overall, it's been really cool to see kind of the diversity of user sizes and the types of activities that they're doing to get the Bitcoin in the first place. It's all very, very cool.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's like really cool to see all these stats and also hear from you. Fabiana and Ashen, I guess, like coming in from like a user perspective too. Do you guys want to share about how you're putting your ZBTC to work on Loopscale, and like kind of a quick kind of like walkthrough for anyone who's like new to the platform?
Yeah, sure. I think now we even have like different strategies. Yeah, we can work on. I mean, there is the vault. I think this one is really easy for people that just want to deposit and just forget about it, get a nice API. But also used to do the Fragmetric, the restaked CBTC on Fragmetric and then deposit on Loopscale. This is maybe something for people that want to farm some more airdrops to leverage the yield in the end. I think it depends a bit how much time you have, but like the user that wants to farm airdrops, I think it's important to also really use the loops and not just the vaults. And yeah, I mean, there are many different ways you can put your CBTC to work, or your Bitcoin, basically.
Do you guys compare strategies and different like looping methods?
Yeah, I think I still have something, some Bitcoin restaked on Fragmentric, right? I mean, they had their initial airdrop last month, but there will be, of course, like season 2 or whatever. And this one I have done on Loopscale, so you can actually loop this. I think you can loop it until like, let me check, like 40% API. I mean, that's crazy if you think. You can farm more airdrops in one, which, like I said, leverage your final yield. Actually, I think that's also a really important point for people. They still see, or they're still living a bit like 2 years behind when we had like airdrops like the Cheeto airdrop, for example. And I think things change like in these 2 years. So you cannot expect to get like the crazy life-changing airdrop. That's just not possible anymore, I think, because the user count also doubled or like 10x, whatever. So it's quite difficult to get like a life-changing airdrop, but I see more like a leveraging, that it leverage actually my final yield. So if you think you have now 10% yield with the airdrop, you have maybe in the end like 20% yield. I think that's the way how you need to see airdrops right now. So even if they are not as good anymore as some people think, as in 2021, 22, 23, it's still very, very good with the yields we have right now. So that's my approach to put my Bitcoin to work. Yeah.
Nice. How about Ashen? Do you take like a similar approach to this, or do you do something slightly different?
Yeah, so I need to study, first of all. Fabiano, for those of you that don't know, in real life, he's a teacher. So that's why he's really, really good at talking here. And that's why his threads are really good too. So I need to go look at his threads and see what the best thing that I want to do is. I know I was a part of that Fragmetric thing, so I could have looped it, but I didn't quite understand. There was like a maturity date or something on Fragmetric that I didn't quite understand. But I will study Fabiano based off what he said today and his threads. And I'm going to see what's possible on Loopscale as well. But we had 2 comments, by the way. I just want to go over. D said, Ashton, show us your feet. And then Fabiano said, I look smart. So I just want to note that I'm being harassed in your comment section.
I don't know. I think we have to better police that next time.
I just wanted to let you know so it's out there. It's in the digital cyberspace area.
For
I'm going to put it
everyone,
on
need higher
chain.
security.
You're the one harassing me, man. Leave me alone.
cool. How about we chat a little bit as well, zoom out a bit into and look at the bigger picture of what's happening with BTC Fi on Solana. So since the start of January, we've seen like over 386 million BTC flow into Solana, which is pretty amazing, and that number keeps climbing. So it's really clear that BTC Fi is growing and there's like this demand for it. I want to get your guys' take as well in terms of how you see the future of Bitcoin on Solana growing. Is there any kind of like trends that you want to highlight, whether that's related to like Loopscale or like Apollo? Yeah, Ashton, you want to go first?
Yeah. I saw something the other day on Sui. So Sui has like a bunch of different wrapped Bitcoin on there. And I think Sui and Hype and Solana and Base are like the only 4 chains that like really matter out there. But what's interesting about Sui is that 15% of their total TVL is wrapped Bitcoin. I think most of it is like OKX and then some other different forums. But I bring this up because I'm like, if we want to expand Bitcoin, DeFi, and Solana, we need to get our numbers up too. Because I was looking at that and I was like, 15% of the total TVL, the entire chain is wrapped Bitcoin. That is insane. I don't know what the percentage is for Solana, but I know it's much less than that. So one thing that I would say is that in addition to like really, really cool places that you can park it and do stuff like looping and LPs or whatever, I think like bringing the total amount on Solana to like be a bigger number is like the number one thing. So I think that's like pressure on the Zeus network guys more than anything, which I'm not trying to do. But I know that they have a really cool motto where it's like we want to bring 1% of like total Bitcoin on chain, or I believe it's 1 to 3. And I think that's a good idea. I think like increasing total TVL of just the fact of how much we have on Solana is like the first step. And I think the protocol is already there to like do stuff with it. That's just something I saw like the other day, and it got me thinking.
Can I ask you, like, what do you think is the reason why they have like 15% of Bitcoin assets on
I think it's like
TVI?
EVM type beat stuff, because there's a lot of protocols on EVM stuff. What EVM, where it's like they've been there for so long, and it's relatively easy to like go on to some random like bullshit L2 or random not bullshit L1 like Hyperliquid or like Sui or whatever. And it's like, why not do that? And I think because of it's already there, it's not super hard to bring it as it is to Solana.
Mm.
So I'm like, they have OKX. Like OKX is gigantic, and I don't know how interested they are in Solana. They also have like Lombard Finance, which is on like every fucking L2 we've never even heard of, and that helps increase that TVL. Whether it's like an inflated number or it's like an actual in use number, I'm not sure, but it's still a pretty high number because of that. Fabiano, what do you think? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, no, I'm actually more interested, like, if it's really used, like,
Yeah.
if they just like bring the Bitcoin there, maybe they have like some campaign or something, but maybe it's not actually used by people in DeFi. So that was more my question. If you have like some background knowledge.
Yeah, I actually saw as well. There's like OKX. Peter, I didn't mean to cut you off, bro. But last thing is that like OKX Bitcoin has like USDC based APR. So if you put like your stuff in like an LP on a certain protocol or whatever, they're just like giving USDC to people for doing it. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, bro. Because I have like some restaked OKX Bitcoin on like SatLayer or something. Again, great protocol, but I'm getting like 12% in just straight USDC on it. That's like the craziest thing ever. And restaking is relatively lower risk than like other forms of Bitcoin you can do, or DeFi you can do. So I just think I think we're getting to that point in Solana though, which makes me really happy, where I'm like, you can explore a lot more stuff now.
Yeah. From what I saw is like you said, on Sui, for example, they often have like rewards like for LP stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's something cool actually, and I think Zeus is doing it really nice as well, like boosting up the API. Of course, this helps. I just think like the central exchanges, I don't want to say any names, but they sometimes like just push it with money, it's a bit inflated with, and then you need to think, will people really use after maybe the campaign is over? Is there enough use cases for these assets? Are there enough dApps? All these questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, Peter, go ahead, bro.
No, Dean, go ahead. I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, in terms of like greater trends and like what I've been seeing, right? I think the absolute biggest thing that's moved the market this whole year is probably BTC treasury companies. And I think that that's just like a major thing, right? That like the asset class, the asset itself has reached a level of maturity that, governments are regulating and legislating in favor of it, largely due to the general bullish nature of the US. And I would even say like some of the other countries that have been very pro Bitcoin beforehand, like in South America and stuff like that. So I think like that's kind of where it started. The US then flipped to be really bullish with this administration. Saylor also, led the charge. Also, like a lot of people from like greater crypto also campaigning in Washington to pull all this stuff forward, right? And sort of try to shine some kind of level of like respect on the industry and gain that formal recognition. So I think this has been like a major narrative, right? And I think the thing that's interesting is like you've got people who are trying to do like legitimate treasury companies, and you've got people who are playing with like essentially paper Bitcoin, right? And people playing with paper Bitcoin is just going to be, it's going to be a like big pain for the markets, for retail, for everybody, investors, everyone. We've all seen like how FTX and stuff like that goes. By contrast to that, people playing with real Bitcoin, right? They're trying to make the safe. They're kind of like the real estate investor who buys the houses and doesn't rent them out in case someone like ruins the house and they lose their principal rate. So the way I see it is like with these treasury companies, transparency is really key. And putting everything on chain, which is like what we do at Zeus, I think is going to become more and more important because people are going to want to know where is your Bitcoin, right? And I think if you just draw this out a little bit, like more longer term, call it like the next 5 to 10 years, right? If you're a treasury company that takes zero risk with your Bitcoin, doesn't put it into any DeFi, doesn't put it into any lending, sure, at the end of the day, you'll still have your same number of Bitcoins, but the treasury company that's willing to have a slightly higher appetite for risk than you, even though it's like not really a major risk at the end of the day, it's pretty small, relatively speaking, they're going to outperform you, right? Their books are going to look better than you. And this is going to put pressure on you as a treasury company. So I feel like the cool thing, if you think about like the UX of like performing a swap in crypto in like 2017 was like you'd go on Binance and you'd like swap some coins and you'd wait for your deposit and your withdrawal and everything, right? And then Solana kind of like absolutely murdered like centralized exchanges. Like you're actually losing money if you're trading Sol on centralized exchanges versus DEXs today because of just how efficient the market has become, right? We think that Solana can do for Bitcoin, for lending and making money from your Bitcoin, from this, for all these use cases that we can now unlock through DeFi. We think that actually Solana could do the same thing that it did for swaps for Bitcoin. And we think that these treasury companies are going to increase their appetite for this as, the smaller ones that are willing to take more risk can outperform the bigger ones in terms of their year on year. And that's going to attract more liquidity and more capital to them. So I think they deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. I think I'll just add on to Dean. I think we are seeing some interesting numbers from Apollo. 2 months ago, we had one of the largest withdrawal on chain using Apollo, and it was a 1.9 million CBBTC to native Bitcoin. And this withdrawal wouldn't have happened without Zeus half year ago. You would have need to gone through a KYC process to get your native Bitcoin back. But with Apollo, this transaction was done permissionless on chain. And at the time, it took 60 minutes. But we had an upgrade yesterday, Apollo V2, which we shortened the time from 60 minutes down to 30. And in the future, we are hoping to reduce the time of minting and burning even shorter. But after the V2, we saw a much bigger deposit. Actually, one of the biggest deposit on chain happened to Apollo. It was a 50 BTC deposit, which is pretty cool. I think just like Dean mentioned, in the future, there is going to be more treasury companies, and there could be ones or family offices that hold Bitcoin and want to accumulate more Bitcoin in DeFi. So I think it's a good sign. It's definitely interesting status to see. There are big transaction one time that's happening through Apollo, and at the same time there are $100 to $1,000 worth of unique users that have been trying Apollo, going between Solana and Bitcoin in and out, using a permissionless approach. So I think that's pretty cool. And just like Dean also mentioned, the market is maturing. There is going to be more regulations. A lot of countries are actually adopting Bitcoin and putting a tax bracket on their earnings. So, Bitcoin, for those that hold Bitcoin, actually want to escape the system, right? So, you're staying on DEX, staying on Solana, or using Apollo to go between, native Bitcoin to ZBTC on Solana, or vice versa. It will keep your Bitcoin, as free as it is. And I think that is one of also the advantage of Apollo, is that it is fully permissionless. There's no KYC, no KYB. It is on chain, but also you'll be able to remain anonymous. So I think that's something pretty cool. Hopefully in the near future, we can reduce the time even faster. But that will be, Dean's magic to work on. But perhaps Dean, I know Apollo upgrade V2 has some sort of security upgrade as well with the EDRA. Maybe you can explain a little bit about the technical side. What's the biggest difference between V1 and V2? That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so in V1, what we were doing was we were making 2 transactions. And the main reason why we have to make 2 transactions was because we needed to be able to attribute the depositor to like a specific wallet, and we were opening an account on chain that would basically we were the first team in the world to implement Schnorr signatures on Solana, not natively supported, but we managed to hack the easy recover syscall to make that possible, right? So that's what we were doing, but what we realized was that if you do that, it requires the user to already have Solana and already have like a wallet to be able to receive the funds to. However, if we flip that around and we make it that we actually take your Solana address and we hide that in your Taproot address when you deposit, we can still derive from the Taproot address, like from the Merkle tree that creates your Taproot address, we can prove that it came from your deposit address and use your Solana wallet to prove that you can basically take custody of these funds. But the really cool thing that that this now enables, right, is you can have a phantom wallet that has an address with no SOL in it, and it would enable you to actually use that address to generate this deposit address, and you can withdraw directly from a centralized exchange to that address without having any Solana. Or you could transfer from your Bitcoin wallet to that address directly without having any Solana. And we are actually able to sell a very small portion of your Bitcoin to help you like fund your account to pay for like your token account or whatever. So what this does is this enables onboarding to Solana via Bitcoin from Bitcoin wallets, from people who only hold Bitcoin, as well as from centralized exchanges, from people who are withdrawing Bitcoin to go and use their Bitcoin in DeFi. So I think that's actually pretty exciting. And the secondary effect of that is we can drastically lower our deposit times because we've moved from a 2-transaction flow to a single transaction flow. And so that to me is just like, it's better UX. It enables these new use cases, and it's great for onboarding people to Solana. Like if you've got a Bitcoin maxi, they're interested, they don't need to buy Solana to use Bitcoin on Solana. I think that's very cool.
The one thing that I just wanted to add,
Sick.
wait, first of all, agree, sick. One thing I just wanted to add that both of you guys kind of said, Dean, you said in the beginning that like if you're a Bitcoin treasury company, which again is the trend for sure, why not put it on chain to have it transparent? I just want to say I agree with that. And then if you get more people to put their Bitcoin on chain, you get them one step closer to using some sort of Bitcoin DeFi, wherever that is. And then Peter, you also mentioned that there was like one of the biggest like Apollo usages on chain, and it took like an hour. I don't know what I was. Thank God I forgot, because I'm not trying to talk shit about a different company, but it was on a different chain, and I tried to like get a different form of wrapped Bitcoin, and I swear to God, it took like 8 hours. Like I did it, and it was only like 0.0. It wasn't that much. It was like 0.01, 0.03 SOL or Bitcoin or some shit, and it literally took 8 hours. I had to submit the transaction. And then I went to sleep after waiting for 3 hours. And then when I woke up, I saw that it finished like an hour before I woke up or something like that. So like I tried to test just to see if Zeus really was like killing it on that sense. And I can confirm that that's true, because it sucked. I had to wait 8 hours, bro, for a transfer. And I didn't even transfer like $1 billion or whatever. I just wanted to say that you guys are right about that. That's all I want to say.
Sick.
And Luke, do you want to add anything to what's been said, like especially with this like momentum for Bitcoin coming to Solana? Does that like how does that like shape what Loopscale is building?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it was Fabiano mentioned about kind of like, hey, cool, you have all these incentives and whatever, and people bring their Bitcoin, they want to bring it to Solana, etc. So what, after things stop, like, why would they keep it here? And I think what Dean mentioned about, sort of the underwriting piece for some of these treasury companies, et cetera, that's a great reason. Another one though is, can we build a productive DeFi ecosystem where people are using that Bitcoin to, make more money within DeFi or to provide services within DeFi such that it's like, profitable, keep it in Solana, keep it in wherever within DeFi going forward. And I think like building, kind of kickstarting that flywheel is like what we're trying to do right now, with like stuff like the big loop, etc., where we can start getting more ZBTC paired with other wrap Bitcoins, paired with stable coins, paired with Sol in liquidity pools. So people are trading Bitcoin on Solana more natively. People are securing loans using their wrap Bitcoin or their ZBTC on Solana rather than, trying to go through like a Coinbase and have their, Bitcoin deposited there and trying to get a loan. And just building out a real, financial ecosystem with Bitcoin as like the foundational asset, I think, long term is the probably one of the most important pieces of like making a Solana native Bitcoin, something that people really want to, invest time and money into. And so, yeah, that's like our big focus is what can we do that's productive, that gets people holding Bitcoin in a way that, they would want to hold it kind of irrespective of incentives and things like that longer term. And so all these loops are just different ways that we can kind of embed Bitcoin within DeFi in different ways that are all diversified. And even if one maybe ends up not being a long-term super profitable thing, there's 6 or 7 other strategies that people can run that are, pretty profitable ways to hold Bitcoin on Solana. And so building out that ecosystem, I think is, going to end up being pretty important for everybody to ultimately end up having a robust and healthy set of Bitcoin users that are Solana native.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice to have also like 2 different perspectives on this call in terms of like building on Solana. How is that different from like building this kind of like strategy on like Ethereum or like other like chains? I guess like both from like a builder perspective for like Luke, Peter, and Dean, and then also from a user perspective from like Fabiana and Ashen.
Maybe I'll go first because I would like to just echo Luke's point. I think looking at statistics, the one of the largest liquidity, for ZBTC is actually on Orca with the Coinbase BTC and ZBTC pair. So for those that are providing liquidity and using ZBTC and Coinbase BTC as the pair to earn additional APY. Now I think something that's pretty cool on Loopscale is that they enable CBBTC and ZBTC LP pair as the underlying collateral asset for you to borrow against different asset on Loopscale. So I think that is super cool, and that's something that was never done before. I think compared to Solana DeFi landscape 2 years ago, it was nothing like this where you can put your LP position. They're earning yield. They're earning they're providing liquidity and volume going through your earning yield on it, and with that you can collateralize and borrow against that on Loopscale and earn additional. So I think that's super awesome, and it's amazing to see ZBTC being kind of that Lego piece for a sustainable economy on Solana. So that's something that it's awesome. And compared to Solana and I guess other different ecosystem, Solana is I would say maturing. More mature than last cycle. There's a bunch of usable DeFi protocols with actual users and liquidity, and it's kind of like a sustainable model where the depositors are earning, some of them from organic borrowing, some of them from incentive campaign. So I think for those that are paying attention, listening to all these kind of alphas and ways to I guess diversify their portfolio and maximize their liquidity into different earning strategies. Those are the ones that's going to benefit from this kind of I guess this is the phase that we're in. So definitely look out for the incentives that are still there. I would envision down the road, years later, these incentives we might not even need these kind of incentive in the next 3 to 5 years, right? So this is kind of early, but I guess those who are early are the ones that is enjoying the incentives. So yeah, that's my take.
Nice. Dean or Luke, do you want to add on that?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, well, sorry, I the original question was focused on Solana versus other chains, or what was the?
Oh yeah, I guess the original question is kind of like why build this on Solana over like other chains. But if there's anything you want to add on top of what Peter said, then feel free.
Oh yeah, no, I would say that liquidity pair that he mentioned is definitely one of the more popular. Talking about the biggest loop, I think that one is going to keep building up liquidity. I think we got about 600 or 700 grand sitting in that now. Just people market making Coinbase, Bitcoin, and CBTC. It's a good one. But yeah, no, Solana is it's just that, I think it's probably the most diverse in terms of like use cases and types of users and things like that. So thinking about both the sophistication levels of different users and then like the capabilities of the partners that you might integrate with and market with, etc. It has grown a ton, and I think like Base and some of these other chains that are similar in user experience are still kind of building some of that out. And ultimately, Solana is I think a very good testing ground for a lot of this stuff that's like a little bit newer, and that we'll hopefully start to see a little bit more, longevity and liveliness as it has time in the market, and people get to kind of build cool products around some of these primitives like CBTC.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And I guess Ashen and Fabiana, like from a user perspective, like why are you putting your BTC on Solana over like other chains?
I think I mentioned.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's a really good. Actually, it's an easy question. I never used Ethereum or any other chain besides Sui for the last 4 years, I guess. So there is no other place for me. There is no other chain to put Bitcoin to work. And I mean, if I'm very honest, I didn't do anything with my Bitcoin before Zeus brought that with Apollo to Solana. And that's actually also really interesting when my followers or anyone I talk to, they often say actually they don't hold any Bitcoin. Like they're on Solana for a few couple of years, but they maybe just start now to actually accumulate Bitcoin because maybe it was too complicated. Maybe you had to buy it with a credit card somehow. You couldn't do anything with your Bitcoin. It was just borrowing. It was slow. Like Ashton said, often like transaction took so long, or you couldn't do anything. So it's interesting to see the people actually starting now with Zeus. You see a lot of things that you can do, LP, vaults on Loopscale. So I would say like Solana is now definitely the place number one to put your Bitcoin to work. And the other reason is just Solana is better than all the other chains.
The best reason.
I think like 40% same reason here. I didn't hold any Bitcoin until like a year ago, and then I don't use Ethereum either, which is not like me trying to be ignorant or whatever. It's just I think user experience on like chains like Sui and Sol are just much better. I think Base is good though. Base is a pretty good chain if you're like a Fed. But I would say growing Bitcoin on Solana is like the goal, ideally. And like I mentioned before, is that like Sui's doing a really good job at that. And I think Peter, Luke said something about like early ecosystems. And I think Sui, like a couple of years ago when we were thinking about it, or at least when I was on there, I was like, this is an example of an early ecosystem. And the people were thinking that about Sol a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago from that. So I think we're learning from each other now about like which one's doing the best. Obviously, Solana was killing meme coins and DeFi and stuff. And then Sui, I think, was doing really, really well with Bitcoin DeFi. So I think as soon as like both of those chains kind of just keep growing into what the other person is doing really well, I think it'll be good for like the ecosystems of both in general. So I think like, as long as, like Fabiano said, I don't really use anything other than Sui and Sol. But as long as Sol starts to grow at the rate that Sui was in Bitcoin DeFi, I'm happy with that. And I've only really been on Sol for the past 4 years. So anything that you can like bring there on chain, it'll only like make the experience better.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, no, it's definitely cool to see like more things happening in DeFi and more things that you can do with BTC. I guess that's definitely like backed up by like the data and like the inflow of like Bitcoin coming into Solana. It's coming up towards kind of like the end of our live stream, but maybe we can take some time to hear from everyone about like what's coming up next in terms of like Zeus, Apollo, Loopscale, and also Ash and Fabiano if you have anything to share. But yeah, let's start off with Loopscale.
Sure. Yeah. Well, obviously, one of the big things for us is continuing to grow, Bitcoin presence and expand kind of places that you can use Bitcoin through our app and some of the integrations that we have set up. Beyond that, we've got a number of kind of interesting new tokenized assets and platforms that are launching kind of somewhat new structures on Solana that we're going to be kind of helping facilitate or participating in. So those will be really interesting, I think, from a yield perspective for users, and also from a diversity of yield. But we've got a number of smaller product updates and things like that we're excited to push out, and we'll kind of keep everybody posted on the Twitter and other forums, just kind of on what's new on that front. But yeah, we're really excited about where Solana is going right now with a lot of these really cool new partners coming that are not really crypto native necessarily, but are building really cool crypto adjacent products that we want to be able to help kind of facilitate. So excited to get some of that out.
Nice. We'll definitely keep an eye out for updates on Twitter. Yeah, Peter, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. A few things. I think first thing, continue growing the biggest loop on Solana with Loopscale. That's our first thing. And then second thing, working hard on Apollo. Apollo is going to get a UI update in another month. So for user experience, we hope to enhance it. We're adding a yield marketplace where user will then have a really clear understanding of where are the yields, what are TVA, what are the APYs. Again, it will be easier for user to find the biggest loop on Solana. It will be a one click away. And then also for August, it's going to be a pretty big month for Zeus. So stay tuned. But I think in terms of ZBTC wise, we're looking into more integrations. We should have good news this month. So stay tuned for that. But again, I think the whole goal over the summer is to push ZBTC adoption, increase ZBTC utilization. I think that's one of the biggest things. We want to make sure we work hard towards not only minting more ZBTC on Solana, but more putting it in use so that it's actually useful liquidity and not just idle liquidity. So I think that's the biggest focus that it's going to be for us. But other than that, it's going to be a great summer, Bitcoin summer, busy August. I'll let Dean go next.
Yeah, from our perspective, we're really excited about a couple of things around increasing the transparency around signing quorums. So one thing that we want to do, what we want to bring to this industry is just we want to bring the best tech, we want to bring the best performance, but we also want to bring transparency, because we think it's really important that when people are investing in these products and using them in DeFi and whatever, we want to be able to basically show you that you're not playing with paper Bitcoin, that it is really backed, it's really there, you can see it on the blockchain, you can see it on the Explorer. And one thing that has not really been explored so far is being able to show transparency around your MPC solution and proving that you are actually utilizing an MPC solution instead of you holding all the key shares yourself or something like that. So that to us is super exciting. And we're also sort of dipping our toes in the cutting edge of DeFi. I probably won't give away too much alpha about that, but yeah, you might see something in the near future.
Nice. Yeah, Fabiana and Ashton, do you have anything that you want to highlight as well quickly on this call?
Yeah, what can people expect from my side? I guess some threats maybe.
Yeah.
Some tweets. But yeah, looking forward to still use and utilize and loop my Bitcoin on Solana. And if people have some questions, feel free to DM me. I try to answer as many people as I can. Yeah, maybe Ashen, V-Pix.
Yeah. When you DM Fabiano, ask him for nudes, and then he's gonna send you pictures of mine instead. That's how this goes. But on my end, I'm working on a protocol as well that'll help you utilize cool protocols like Zeus Network and Loopscale, kind of like a on-chain DeFi aggregator for Solana. But aside from that, anything that these guys are doing, I'm kind of like a fan of. So whatever way that I can talk about it and make it more digestible for people to actually get involved, that's what you can expect from me as well.
Nice, looking forward to it. Okay, so one kind of like rapid fire round. So for anyone who's watching this and they're just holding Bitcoin, they have it in cold storage, what tip would you give to them? Like something like this one pitch to like convince them to get it moving, mint ZBTC, put it into Loopscale. Well, let's go from Peter, Dean, Luke, and then Fabiana and Asher.
Join the movement. Build the biggest loop on Solana. With Apollo V2, again, shorter time frame to go from Bitcoin to Solana on chain, permissionless, no KYC, KYB. So that's it. We want to bring more liquidity onto Solana. By the same time, we want to educate people that one ZBTC equals one BTC. Fully transparent, fully on chain, fully backed on an on-chain reserve. So that's it.
I'll say if you read the title of the Bitcoin white paper, it doesn't say an electronic coin or electronic cash. It says a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Bitcoin is more than just an asset. Bitcoin is money. And when we are enabling its use in DeFi, when we're enabling its use in microtransactions by scaling its throughput on Solana and unlocking new use cases, I think that's the realization of the white paper. If you're the sort of person who read the white paper and was inspired by that and you hold some, then I recommend that you try out participating in the peer-to-peer electronic cash system that is Bitcoin on Solana.
Yeah, I think it's for us, it's find a way to make your Bitcoin productive. Go market make with it, go, lend it out, get people using Bitcoin, make that ecosystem something that can last beyond whatever hype cycles and things people are excited about in the moment. And it's really something that gets everybody excited about this stuff long term. So that's where I would want people to spend their time thinking about.
Nice.
I think people need to realize if you just hodl, it's like missing free money actually. That's my take. All you need to know.
Yeah, mine is similar. Obviously, Bitcoin, best crypto you can hold, like most reliable, most decentralized, stuff like that. Everyone should have some form of Bitcoin, whether that's like $10, $5, whatever. But I think during seasons of like chop or bear market or downtrend, you can only really appreciate price appreciation or depreciation, which sucks. And I think during like chop or bear market, whenever that happens, if you can like earn 2 to even 8% more a year on your Bitcoin, I think that's worth doing.
For sure. Nice. So yeah, for people who are watching this, there's like no better time than now to jump in to mint ZBTC and deposit on Loopscale, earn lending yield, and then also stack up some extra rewards too, like 200,000 in Zeus rewards, 4x on Loopscale points. And yeah, thank you to everybody on this call for hopping on, sharing your insights. And don't forget to follow everybody as well and stay updated. Zeus Network HQ, Apollo BTC Portal. We just updated the handles, so make sure you follow that. And Loopscale Labs. Cool. Thanks, Fabiana, Ashen too. Catch you all next time. And enjoy the rest of Bitcoin Summit on Solana.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
one.